Longlegs, the brand new horror movie. In this video we will dive into its deeper themes and symbolism. There will be spoilers. Let us begin. There's a killer on the loose, only there's no trace of him. Just the coded letters he leaves at the crime scenes, and he signs them with the name Longlegs. It's a very symbolic film, and the different symbols come together to convey meaning at different scales in the movie, from the level of individual objects all the way up to the overall narrative. Fittingly, the apocalyptic text of Revelation 13 verse 1 is quoted at various points in the film. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. Now this part of Revelation is describing the unholy trinity, comprising the dragon, who is Satan himself. Then there's the beast of the sea, mentioned in this verse, who is often interpreted as the Antichrist, a figure who is given authority by Satan. And as you read on in Revelation 13, you encounter a third figure, the beast of the earth, the false prophet, who commands humans to make an image of the beast from the sea, and uses that image to oppress the people of God. And there's a sense in which Longlegs, with authority from Satan, is playing the role of the first beast, the beast from the sea, within the movie. And in a devastating twist, it transpires that Ruth, the mother of our protagonist, is acting on behalf of Longlegs, playing the role of the second beast, the beast of the earth. So this perverse trio of Satan, Longlegs and Ruth, they are targeting families, each containing a 9-year-old daughter born on the 14th of the month, and the murders happen within 6 days of the birthday. When our protagonist, Lee, plots this all out on a calendar, it forms an inverted triangle, an occult symbol of the unholy trinity. And how are the murders brought about? Well, Longlegs is a skilled craftsman. He makes a doll, a representation of each girl, and places a metal orb filled with the presence of Satan inside the head. And then Ruth smuggles these dolls into the homes, and Satan does his evil work on the families. One of the disturbing things about the film is that according to its justice system, which is very similar to ours, someone like Longlegs is very difficult to prosecute. He worships Satan and is drawing power from Satan to commit these crimes, but there's no physical evidence tying him to the crimes. At one point, a metal sphere from one of the dolls is analysed and found to be completely hollow, but it isn't hollow. It contains the presence of Satan, and that won't show up on a scan. It's interesting to see the almost dogmatic skepticism at work in Lee's supervisor, Agent Carter, certainly when it comes to this case. He is reluctant to believe that there is anything deeper going on. Everything must have a purely material explanation. But over the course of the film, reality pushes back, and it starts to become impossible to deny the existence of the supernatural. So this post-Christian crime department lacks the tools to fully tackle a Longlegs case, because what's going on here is a spiritual battle. To appreciate the deeper themes of this film, it's helpful to have some understanding of symbolism. So what is a symbol? A symbol is a fact, a tangible object that embodies higher meaning. For instance, consider words on a page. Those play a key role in the movie as Agent Harker attempts to decipher Longlegs' letters. There are physical marks of ink made on the paper, and it is possible to read them and understand them. In fact, every time you write a letter, you are participating in a union of meaning and matter. The physical ink markings aren't merely physical ink markings. They convey meaning. You can read them and understand them. And you need both. Without the physical matter from below, meaning could not be expressed in a tangible way. The ink markings on the page allow meaning to be expressed. And without the meaning itself from above, our universe would be merely a collection of physical particles clacking together. It would be meaningless. So that's one crucial relationship, meaning and matter. The other interplay is between space and time. but not how we think of space and time nowadays, the space-time continuum. That's not how ancient people thought about space and time. No, they were seen as these two conflicting forces. When space dominates, things are familiar, ordered and stable. For example, a people group living at peace in their promised land. When time dominates, things are unstable, confused and restless, handed over to cyclical, overturning forces. This might be reflected by a flood, or a people group wandering in the wilderness or being carried off into exile. It's a handing over to the primal, swirling, transforming forces of creation. So that's the ancient view of reality. There is a relationship between heaven and earth, between matter and meaning, and there is an interplay between space and time. With this symbolic framework in place, we can see more of what's going on in the movie. Longlegs, as we've said, is a Satan-worshipping serial killer, and there's something profoundly disturbing about his activities, and even his mere presence on screen. With so many of our modern stories trying to frame the villain as someone who is simply misunderstood or didn't get enough hugs as a kid, here we see diabolical evil being named as diabolical evil. And what is evil? It is a fracturing of the union between heaven and earth. It is disagreement between heaven and earth. Consider the snake in the Garden of Eden. It deceives Eve, and subsequently Adam, to grasp prematurely from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Humanity forms an alliance with the snake, rejecting the meaning imparted by God from above. So that's disagreement between heaven and earth entering the world. But also what's going on in the Garden of Eden is we see the interplay of space and time. Space is represented by the tree, the stable structure of the garden, and time is represented by the snake, this strange cyclical coiling influence. And to begin with, it's not that the snake is inherently bad in contrast to the trees. No, both have a place within the garden. The problem is that Adam and Eve form an alliance with the snake, rejecting God, and as a result they are exiled from the garden. The disagreement between heaven and earth is accompanied by a handing over to the dominion of time. And the Bible tells us that the serpent of the garden and Satan are in fact the same character. And so, appropriately, throughout the film, Lee has visions of a snake, a symbol of satanic deception at work. And her mother, Ruth, has become embroiled in this deception. We learn that she is doing the bidding of Longlegs because she was led to believe that it was the only way to protect Lee. And so she goes from house to house, dressed as a nun, bringing gifts. Notice the deception, the disagreement between meaning and matter. On the outside, she is a gentle-looking lady, a nurse figure who cares for children. That's how she presents herself. But what's really going on? She's bringing the presence of Satan into these homes, leading entire families into murdering themselves. And Longlegs is dressed entirely in white, a chilling reminder that Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. It's also worth paying attention to the shapes that appear in the film. Squares and cubes are symbols of space. Circles and spheres, on the other hand, reflect the cyclical, overturning influence of time. And we see a shift over the course of the film. To begin with, the squares dominate, reflecting some degree of stability. Agent Harker demonstrates a supernatural level of intuition during her assignments, and she is put through a word association test to see if she has some form of clairvoyance. The test involves a series of square images projected onto the wall, square of light, and that conveys some sense of hope. If anyone can catch the killer and maintain stability, it is surely this woman, with her apparently remarkable giftings. But as the story develops, it becomes clear that this apparent stability is concealing something else. Lee and Carter discover a wooden box, but when they open it, they discover the doll representation of Carrie Ann, one of Longlegs' victims. And of course, inside the head of the doll is the hollow metal orb, which they later discover is filled with the presence of Satan. And so the arrival of these spheres represents the cyclical, overturning influence of time breaking out into the story, eating away at the stability of space. We have gone from squares and boxes to spheres. We have gone from stability to chaos. The fact that these young girls are targeted on or around their birthdays is another sign of a perverse dominion of time in the film. Birthdays are about celebrating life coming into the world. Death takes life out of the world. Now, of course, it's wrong to kill a person on any day, not just their birthday, let's be clear on that. But there's something symbolic going on here. By killing these girls on or around their birthdays, Longlegs is conflating birth and death. It's also the central problem in the film Happy Death Day. For Tree Gelbman in that film, her birthday becomes her death day in a repeating time loop. The problem to be solved is that birth and death are being conflated. Incidentally, this is probably why the ancient Israelites were forbidden from boiling a young goat in its mother's milk. As Mathieu Pajot writes, this law forbids the confusion of birth and death as a self-negating cycle. So things get pretty bad. But the film hints at the possibility of deliverance. Because in the world of the film, if you crack open the metal orb associated with a particular girl, you set her free from the satanic oppression. We see that happen to Lee herself. But at the end, there's a strong sense of Satan having the last laugh. Carter's daughter Ruby remains possessed. Lee tries to shoot her metal orb, but the gun refuses to fire. And we hear Longlegs singing Happy Birthday. Even though we witnessed the deaths of both him and Ruth, it seems the battle is not yet won. So Longlegs is a bleak film. It's a tragedy. I don't know the intentions of the filmmakers, but taking Longlegs on its own terms, it expresses something of the perverse alliance between humanity and Satan, the darkness of the world. In the film, God seems distant. Ruth found her prayers to be ineffective, and Lee is too scared to pray.
Do you still say your prayers?
No, Mom. I never said my prayers, never once. They scared me. What's so funny?
You're right. No, our prayers don't help us.
Sometimes life can feel like that. Things seem handed over to the forces of evil. The tragic stories we tell, like Longlegs, the stories that end with darkness, they help us to feel the weight of the darkness. But they also leave me with a longing for something more, for good to ultimately triumph. And that is the Christian hope. The true God of the universe, the God fully revealed in Jesus, he is good, and Longlegs should be afraid of him. My name is Thomas Thorogood. I get into the deeper meaning of movies. Thanks so much for watching. Do subscribe if you'd like to join us for the next video. Goodbye.